Morning. My name's James. 2 years I've been at Ball Street, pretty much. Never really spoken about QPR because no one is that bothered. But today is the day. Yay. And we get to talk about QPR. Quiet day in the press in terms of League Cup results and things like that, which we will get into, but things that actually affect my life and the life of football fans. There are a few stories there, and that's what News at 10 is going to be about. Some days we'll talk about those big stories, but today this is a huge story for Queen's Park Rangers, which is my team. And it's a big story for fans of all clubs outside the top six as well, because we'll talk about the revenue share for the top six that they were looking to get, which has been kiboshed.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on the QPR situation, which I'm going to dive into in a second, and the League Cup results yesterday, and the top six and their revenue not yet being kiboshed, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
But the big story that we're going to go on with today is the fact that QPR, I hate this, QPR have been ordered to pay a world record 40 million, probably going to be plus north of 40 million after losing a 3-year battle over their financial fair play rules.
It's a big fine.
It's a huge fine, and there is an incredible article if you want to know the actual in-depth aspects of this on Loft for Words, which is a QPR forum. Clive Whittingham, really intelligent writer. Who, I think
Very witty name as well, by the way.
It's a good name, isn't it? Yeah. He's written a great article on the entire thing, and essentially the main aspects of it are that in 2012, financial fair play came into being. QPR at that point had been bought by Tony Fernandez and had gone for it. They'd spent a lot of money on players' contracts, and Mark Hughes was manager.
Was that the year that you came up and you signed a lot of established?
Yeah, so we bought people like Sean Wright-Phillips, Joey Barton, Anton Ferdinand, which isn't the biggest name, but then the year after that, Ji-Sung Park. Esteban Granero, you'll remember we had Paddy Kenny, got rid of him, and then brought in Rob Keane for over £50,000 a week. Then we
were Rio as well, didn't you?
Well, then we had Rob Green, and then we thought, no, we'll have Julio Cesar for north of £100,000 a week. All of this is an extortionate amount of money that we shouldn't have been spending at the time. But what Tony Fernandez was looking to do was to move the club forward and try and get us from being a newly promoted team to then be a side that could maybe be a top 10 team in the Premier League. As football fans, we're always talking about get your hand in your pocket, spend some money on the club. What happened is we went down, and then the financial fair play regulations were put in place upon us. We had a wage bill of 70 million quid, and the amount of debt that you were allowed as a club at that moment in time was 8 million a season.
What was your turnover if your wages were 70?
A turnover was less than half of that.
Right.
But the idea was, I guess, was that we're not going to go into the Championship. And also the regulations for the Football League as opposed to the Premier League are two very different things.
Yeah.
So at that moment in time, at the end of that season, we were able to get back into the Premier League, which was a great thing. The problem then was that we didn't stay in the Premier League, and we've then moved down, which means that the financial fair play rules that we didn't live by, which was £8 million worth of debt, we actually had £70 million worth of debt, but the club tried to sort of swallow 60 million quid of that.
Was that when you released the profit and loss accounts for that year, and just like 50 or 60 was just literally written off?
It was called an exceptional item, which it was, and 60 million. We'll get onto this, because it's very interesting. This kind of the ownership of football clubs and the ownership of football clubs that aren't the top six teams. Because if you want to try and get somewhere as a football club, you need to you have to spend a lot of money. And the one thing that the QPR owners, Tony Fernandez, and the investors have done, which is to be commended slightly, as horrific as the amount of money that they spent is that they tried to swallow that money. Unlike the Oystons, unlike Leyton Orient, who have just taken money out of the club for their own means, they speculated, and it hasn't been a burden on the club. It could still be with this 40 million fine.
So is it effectively showing you that it's safer to not invest, to not take the risk as a football club owner, because if you do and it doesn't work out, this can happen to you?
The problem we've got here is that you've still got the lay of the land then is different to what it is now. Now you can have £39 million worth of debt over 3 years, and you've still got teams doing it now. You've got Middlesbrough, you've got Aston Villa, you've got Wolves going for it, which is, you can commend that. But what they can do is they've got 3 years and it's 39 million, not 1 year and 8 million. So that's where QPR feel like it's slightly unfair. 70 million quid on wages is way too much. But if we've been in the Premier League and we brought in 80 million, it's okay.
Yeah.
So the problem we've got here as a football league and a Premier League is the disparity between the two. The obvious thing is to go, build a club properly, and that's what we've done that completely wrong. We now have a guy called Lee Hoos, who's the chief executive, who was at Burnley and put in place the system that they have, which you've seen Burnley go from strength to strength, and that is a great way of doing it. But in doing that, what you're going to see is the bigger clubs, the top 6, 7, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the teams that are being sensible and moving up, it's just the disparity between the two is going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's harder to bridge the gap, and the way to bridge that gap is to invest heavily and try and get yourself a couple of steps up the ladder quicker, which ultimately, if it works, great, but QPR are suffering the consequence of it not working.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, and it's interesting, it'll be interesting to see what other Championship fans think about this, because the other thing is that Forest have been done with an embargo, Blackburn have been done in the past with an embargo, but the top teams like Man City and the amount of money they're spending on their training ground and the way they're getting around it, or Chelsea where they're stockpiling players just so that no one else can have them. That doesn't fit financial fair play either.
No, I was saying to you off camera beforehand, it's like when Man City got the Etihad shirt sponsorship deal. Now, Abu Dhabi... Sorry, I've got a cold, by the way, hence the coughing. There was a conflict of interest in terms of the ownership of Etihad and the Emirates as well, who sponsored Man City Stadium. Effectively, it was a sister business, and they just gave themselves a ridiculous shirt sponsorship deal to cover the fact that they're spending more money on players. Therefore, as far as the profit and loss account goes, it's balanced. And it's the same thing as PSG this year. So PSG were hit with a €60 million fine back in 2014. Which they had a 40 million was taken back off them if they met the rules in 2014-15 and 2015-16 season. Then, last year, they signed Neymar for a 220 million Qatari loan that PSG didn't even own, and they got Mbappe, who they're not going to buy until next year, so because of that, it balances the books. It's basically a manipulation game where you can put your finances in the right spots just to meet the guidelines. Yeah. And obviously it's on a much larger scale with PSG, but this problem may affect QPR at the moment, but it highlights a much bigger problem that affects all football teams.
And what it also highlights is those big teams can find that money from different spots. Smaller teams can't.
You can't bring in all of a sudden like a shirt sponsor that's going to give you 40, 50, 60 million to cover these losses.
And look, any other Championship team, you go, well, look, you knew the rules, you should have spent within your means. A lot of the money that had been spent was to compete in the Premier League. I think QPR should be fined for it. I think the owners need to swallow the money once it gets to that point. QPR are set to appeal by the end of November. This is something that's going to drag out for another 18 months. And QPR now do actually have their house in order, and we're doing things the right way. But it's such murky water. I'm intrigued to know what people think. I'll
tell you what. Going into the comments, there's lots. One from Doran saying, "I see QPR finally relevant." That's a bit harsh but fair. But there's a lot of hatred going towards the concept of FFP and what does it mean, and whether or not FFP has ever truly made football financially a fair game. Because the thing I find most strange about financial fair play is the majority of the fines that have gone out to these big clubs have been monetary. If you're gonna fine somebody who's got a bankroll of money, you can't do it simply by just asking them to pay a little bit more money. It's nothing to them. Yeah. Something that they did do was when they put these transfer bans and regulations in, that's when it's going to start having an effect on the teams that's going to go much further than just a 30 to 40 million loss. Because let's be honest, financial fair play has pretty much been a bit of a joke. It came in to try and establish a parity and stop that disparity between the top and the bottom, but it hasn't. It's just created legal loopholes. Well, if you can hire the most expensive lawyer, you can get around them. Yeah,
and also the idea was that it was to stop clubs spending beyond their means. But the truth is it's about the leveraging of debt, in my opinion. If the amount of money that's in there, if you want to try and be competitive, if it's not leveraged against the club, then I can understand that's a safer way of doing it. You're still going to have that Queen's Park Rangers club that I love, not completely brought to its knees at the end of it if the owner decides he's bored of this challenge or whatever.
We've got a comment there from Sam Davies saying, my club, Notts Forest, have been screwed by FFP. We still managed to stay up by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
Playing boring defensive football. Now we are in a rebuilding stage and playing nicer football. Is that what QPR are going through at the moment? Is this?
Yeah, I think what's going big for QPR now is the scouting, setting up a squad and a situation where we're bringing through young players, which is good. It fits QPR in a better way. What scares me is that in 18 months' time, there's still that 45 million plus fine that we have to pay. Then what? This is different to, our manager's got sacked. Oh no, we've lost 6 games. This is my club that could be completely brought to its knees, and other clubs that could do the same. It could happen to Middlesbrough, it could happen to Villa, it could happen to Wolves. It's happened to Portsmouth in the past. That difficulty between sort of speculating and taking the risk of trying to be a regular Premier League club it's a dangerous one.
Do you want to move on to something else slightly less depressing for you this morning?
The Big Six have abandoned a move to reallocate overseas TV revenue. A lot of money, less money for you. So this story came out about a couple of weeks ago. Richard Scudamore, who's head of the Premier League, got all the owners of the Premier League clubs together because the top 6 felt that they should be getting more money from overseas channels because they're bringing the money in, they think, which I think actually you're missing the point. It's the product of the Premier League that's important. You want these guys playing games that matter. And so, fortunately, in my opinion, you need 14 owners to decide that they want to do it. You had the top 6, and I think you had West Ham, Everton and Leicester all up for it. But Steve Parish, Crystal Palace owner, stepped in, he got the other guys together, they had lunch, and they've decided to hold firm. So this is a rule that's been in place since the start of the Premier League, 25 or whatever it is years ago, that all overseas money will be split up in a fair way, not based on the league position of the club. And for now, at least, it's going to stay the same.
Well, it should stay the same. In La Liga, that TV revenue model where I think Real Madrid and Barcelona take 80% and the last 20% is shared among the other 18 or however many people in La Liga, makes no sense whatsoever. If this TV revenue is going to... You've seen the change it's done in the Premier League. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 years ago, there was always 2, maybe 3 teams who could compete for the Premier League title. Now there are genuinely 5 or 6, and that's come because all the teams are getting more money. The investment's getting higher and higher, and it's making the Premier League more competitive. The idea of all of a sudden taking that parachute away, or that nest away from all these other teams, you're just going to get the top 3 running away again. And I don't mind it. I don't mind making the Premier League more competitive.
To a point, you're already starting to see that anyway. You can see the Premier League in blocks of sort of 5 or 6. The mid-table teams, the teams are going to be struggling down the bottom, and the difference between the Huddersfields, Swanseas, Burnleys, although Burnley are doing great this season, and the top teams, you can see the difference already. If you give the top teams even more money, then it's going to get even more ridiculous. You've got to know that it's a good product. Don't fuck with it.
Right, and let's move on to some different news as well. Something that's happening today, which is very exciting. England versus Brazil, the under-17s World Cup semi-final, live on the BBC at 12:30 kickoff. England won the under-20s World Cup. So the England senior team may be a pile of shit, but our youth team's actually pretty good.
Watch out. Watch out, the rest of you. Watch out, Iceland. We're coming for you. So
that'll be quite exciting to watch. I'll be watching Angel Gomez, who's a Manchester United youngster. He's he was in the under-17s team. I'm not sure if he's there anymore, but it's exciting. Our younger kids are very, very good.
Absolutely. And finally, let's run through some of the League Cup results. Arsenal with a 2-1 win against Norwich. 2 late goals from new boy Edward Nketiah, who's the first player to score for Arsenal who was born after Arsene Wenger became manager.
What a stat.
Yeah, thank you. England under 19 international.
Has he been called the new Marcus Rashford yet?
Not yet.
Probably has.
Not yet. He scored after 15 seconds first touch.
Really?
He's only a little lad. Cracking little header, did well. 2-1 for them. Bournemouth winning 3-1 against Middlesbrough. Bristol City 4-1 against Crystal Palace.
Roy Hodgson doing the thing.
Doing the thing. But Bristol City have got a decent side this season. Leicester City, who, again, we get back to QPR. Leicester City, they gambled as well. Worked out for them. They ended up winning the fucking Premier League, whereas QPR are struggling now. So look, as much as you want to get angry at QPR, other guys are taking a gamble as well, and it shows how risky it can be. But they beat Leeds 3-1. Swansea losing to Man United away from home. Solid win there.
Very, very solid win. 2 really beautiful goals. Nice football. We play kids, and that's one thing Jose Mourinho typically doesn't do. Even in the League Cup, he always plays a strong team. But we've rested Matic and Lukaku, saw McTominay, Tuanzebe and Lingard start. We played very well, but we got Spurs on Saturday. That's the big one.
That's the big one. And finally, Man City beating Wolves on penalties. The big story on the back page is being a squirrel going onto the pitch when my club is on its knees. Okay? Come on, British press. Step it up a little bit. Surely the front page of BBC Sport shouldn't be a squirrel. It should be what's going on at a club that's on its knees. Should we see if we can go through a few comments? Because the comments have been going absolutely bonkers. I think Adam might be trolling you in saying, we'll do a film with James of him walking down the road looking for a new club to support. That's fantastic, Adam.
It's not very nice.
All noted, Adam. All noted.
That's a disciplinary right there.
No.
Basically, there's a comment there about FFP saying, it seems like a needlessly harsh fine, says Beardy Josh, for QPR, which will probably be negotiated down a bit during appeals. It feels like FFP enforces a disparity between big teams and everyone else, which is exactly what we were talking about and going into there.
Lawrence's daddy, he was digging me out in the comments the other day. Absolutely no need for that. He's saying the top 6 can fuck off for all I care.
Well, they're not going anywhere. It's just
not yet anyway.
Well, it's a top 7 if you're an Everton fan, I suppose.
Yeah, well, they're not top 7, are they?
No, they're not top 7. I don't know where they are now. The bottom 3, aren't they?
They are
the expectations, eh? But QPR is a massive fine.
George the Beast, Adam, no one likes you. Final comment, there you go.
We'll leave it on that, George.
We'll leave it on that. This is News at 10. We are here every weekday morning. Hit that notification bell if you want to hear the biggest stories that people should be talking about in football, not just squirrels running onto a pitch.
By the way, Adam's denying it. He's saying it was Craig. I think he's deflecting blame there. We know it was you, Adam.
Hit that notification bell. As I said, we're live every single morning at 10. Hit subscribe as well if you like this video. And me being a bit upset, then hit the like button, because then I get something out of it.
I think there's going to be more likes in this video than we have actually ever had.
Maybe. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see you very soon.
Take it easy.